July 2019. Washington makes an announcement. Turkey, a NATO ally since 1952, is being removed from the F-35 fighter jet program. 40 aircraft, billions of dollars, 2 decades of joint development, gone in a single statement. The reason? Ankara had just taken delivery of a Russian S-400 air defense system, and the United States would not risk its most advanced jet flying alongside Russian radar. For most nations, a blow like that means retreat. For Recep Tayyip Erdogan, it became a declaration of war on dependency itself. 7 years later, Turkey builds its own stealth fighter, its own main battle tank, and drones that have already rewritten the rules of modern warfare. This is how one crisis became the blueprint for what Erdogan calls a new era of Turkish military power, and what that power is actually costing the country. To understand what changed, you have to understand what Turkey used to be. For most of the Cold War, the Turkish military ran almost entirely on American and European hardware. F-16 fighters built under license, tanks bought second-hand from Germany, ammunition and spare parts controlled by foreign suppliers thousands of kilometers away. That dependency had already burned Turkey once. In 1974, after Turkish forces intervened in Cyprus, the United States imposed a full arms embargo. Turkish squadrons were grounded for lack of parts, some for years. That memory never left Ankara's military planners. It became the founding trauma behind almost every defense decision that followed. A conviction that the day would come when an ally would cut Turkey off again, and that Turkey needed to be ready when it did. That day came in 2017, when Turkey signed a deal with Russia for the S-400 air defense system, a system NATO forces are built to shoot down, not fly beside. Washington warned Ankara repeatedly. Erdogan bought it anyway. The United States responded under its CAATSA sanctions law, and by mid-2019, Turkey was formally expelled from the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program. It was one of the sharpest ruptures between Turkey and its Western allies in the history of NATO. But instead of walking the deal back, Erdogan reframed it entirely. The expulsion wasn't treated as a defeat. It was held up as proof that Turkey could never again let a foreign government hold its air force hostage. The order went out: build everything at home. That order runs through one institution, the Presidency of Defense Industries, known by its Turkish acronym, SSB. It functions like a war-footing industrial ministry, coordinating hundreds of private and state contractors, setting multi-year capability targets, and steering billions of dollars into domestic production. The numbers show the scale of the push. Turkish ammunition production capacity has jumped from around 4,000 units a year to 65,000, with a target of 1 million units annually by the end of the decade. 5 new defense technology centers have opened for research and development, and new production facilities are being commissioned under fresh multi-billion-dollar investment programs. This isn't a single weapons project. It's an attempt to build an entire self-sufficient war economy from the ground up. The clearest proof of concept came from the sky, specifically from a company called Baykar, run by Selçuk Bayraktar, who also happens to be Erdogan's son-in-law. Baykar's Bayraktar TB2 drone was cheap, simple, and lethal, armed with laser-guided munitions and built to loiter over a battlefield for hours. It proved itself in Libya's civil war, then in the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, where Azerbaijani TB2s tore through Armenian armor columns on live broadcast footage, and later in Ukraine, where it became an early symbol of resistance. The commercial payoff has been staggering. In 2026, Bayraktar entered Turkey's list of 10 richest individuals for the first time, driven almost entirely by drone exports. Baykar hasn't stood still. The larger Akinci strike drone followed, and now the Kizilelma, Turkey's first jet-powered unmanned combat aircraft, began entering service with the Turkish military in 2026.
But drones alone don't replace an air force. That's the job of KAAN, Turkey's attempt to build a fifth-generation stealth fighter from scratch, designed by Turkish aerospace industries to eventually replace the country's aging F-16 fleet. KAAN first flew in February 2024. By 2026, multiple prototypes were in flight testing, and Turkey signed its first serial production contract, 20 aircraft, with deliveries planned toward the end of the decade. The early jets fly on American-made engines, a compromise Ankara has openly admitted, while a fully indigenous engine is targeted for the early 2030s. It's a program built on genuine ambition and genuine risk. A fifth-generation fighter is one of the hardest things any nation can attempt to build alone, and Turkey is one of only a handful even trying. International interest is already following the program. Indonesia signed on for 48 aircraft in a deal reportedly worth around $10 billion, Turkey's largest defense export contract to date. On land, the flagship program is the Altay main battle tank, Turkey's first domestically designed armor since the Republic's founding. Deliveries have been slow and repeatedly delayed, but 2026 marks a real acceleration. More than 3 times as many Altay tanks reaching Turkish land forces compared to the year before. It's a small number in absolute terms, but symbolically, it matters. For the first time, Turkey's ground forces are receiving armor that was never licensed, never imported, and never dependent on a foreign supplier's approval.
At sea, the picture is similar. New Milgem-class corvettes are entering service. A new generation submarine has joined the fleet. Turkish shipyards are producing landing craft and patrol boats by the dozen. On the missile side, Turkey unveiled what it displayed as its first long-range ballistic missile at a 2026 defense exhibition in Istanbul, alongside new anti-ship missiles and heavyweight torpedoes moving towards serial production. Whatever the exact capabilities turn out to be, the intent is unmistakable. An independent strike capability that doesn't run through Washington or Brussels.
None of this happens without money.
And Turkey's defense exports have become one of its fastest-growing industries. In 2025, the sector crossed $10 billion in exports for the first time, shipping to over 100 countries. Erdogan's government has set a goal of $11 billion for 2026, with an ambition to break into the world's top 10 defense exporters. Nearly 100 separate defense cooperation agreements have been signed with governments across Africa, Latin America, and the Gulf, opening the door to joint production and long-term arms relationships far beyond Turkey's own borders.
Erdogan himself has described this buildup as a major leap forward, framing it as Turkey's chance to convert military strength into lasting international standing. Pro-government commentators have gone further, floating the idea of Turkish forces playing a role in disputes as far away as Jerusalem, rhetoric that plenty of analysts see as far outpacing Turkey's actual reach. And that's the tension at the center of this story. Critics, including regional security analysts, argue that the very buildup meant to elevate Turkey has instead strained its civilian economy and deepened its diplomatic isolation from some of its traditional partners. Building an independent military-industrial complex is expensive, and the bill has landed on ordinary Turks at a time of persistent inflation. Whether this is the foundation of genuine regional power or an overextended and costly gamble is a question that has not been settled, and probably won't be for years. What's certain is this: the Turkey of 2019, expelled from a fighter jet program and scrambling for a response, no longer exists. In its place is a country building its own stealth fighter, its own tanks, its own missiles, and selling them to 100 countries around the world. Whether history remembers this as the rise of a new Ottoman military, or as the moment Turkey overreached, is still being written.
If this kind of story interests you, where power is built and what it costs to build it, this channel covers it every week. Where every conflict has a cause, every border has a cost, and every war leaves something behind. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next.